About 1 month ago, I made a video. The title begins with the words, "Stop treating women like infants." And I think that's going to end up being a series of videos. I think I'm going to have a playlist in the end of all the different videos I make that have this in the title. Because a very interesting thing happened in terms of the audience response to that video. Quite a few people wrote to me through messages, through email. Quite a few people wrote to me with a sincere epiphany, sudden realization that their position of only a few days earlier had actually been sexist at a time when they were accusing me of being sexist. All right? And something similar has happened here with these ridiculous allegations from Ryan of Happy Healthy Vegan that I am sexist. And really, sincerely, when I watch the video from Ryan, I perceive him as sexist in a very fundamentally important way. Okay? With that earlier example, stop treating women like infants. Wengie is 30, Ivanka Trump is 35. I had a situation where people were criticizing me and saying that I was sexist and saying, basically demanding to know, how dare you criticize Wengie as if she's an intelligent adult who's responsible for her own opinions and for the quality of her own content on YouTube, be it high, low, or indifferent. How dare you do that when she's only a young woman, when she is only a girl, when she's just a girl? Okay? Now, this is an especially bizarre example because Wengie is not a girl. Wengie is 30 years old, and many people were shocked to learn that. Okay? And the video I uploaded with this title, "Stop Treating Women Like Infants," argued persuasively that what you're doing in trying to put a woman above reproach or beneath contempt, outside of the scope, the range of this kind of real criticism, that is really sexist in a profound way. It's of tremendous importance that we do engage in critique that takes somebody like Wengie as seriously as I take somebody like Gary Francione. Okay? And to do anything else is basically dehumanizing women, young or old. All right? Wengie is 30 years old. If Wengie were only 18 years old, would I speak about her in a different way? Yes. But I mean, the way in which somebody's age influences your critique is quite subtle. I mean, I would never treat Wengie the way that Ryan from Happy Healthy Vegan tells me I ought to treat women, not if she was 18 and not if she was 80. But to give an example, when I did a book review recently, we had a book review and an in-depth discussion of what we assume is the final book from Gary Francione. Gary Francione is now a very elderly man, and he has this book, and by its title and its style, it seems like it's his final political declaration on veganism and animal rights. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's going to live another 30 years and write another 10 books. But nevertheless, when you look at that book written by an elderly man at the end of his career, you do evaluate it. You do, you do criticize it differently than you would a book written by maybe a vegan activist who's only 19 years old, who's at the start of his career, who may have many disappointments ahead of him, who may change his perspective in so many ways. And, criticism directed at young people, I think it is in many ways more important because those young people still have the capacity to change. There was a young woman, I'm not going to say who, she was involved in vegan activism in real life, and she came here online, on YouTube and on Reddit and other discussion forums, and I was not the only one who perceived correctly. So I forget her age. Let's say she was 21. She could have been 23. I forget. Let's say she was 21. I was not the only one who correctly perceived that she didn't just endorse violence. She was really on a bit of a downward spiral in terms of becoming more and more violent and more angry. And this was coming out in her activism. It's coming out in things she said on the internet. And some people, a lot of people, maybe hundreds of people, saw these pro-violent statements she made on the internet and dismissed it because she's just a girl. She's a young woman. And I remember I got a hold of her and I talked to her and I said, look, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and both of us have seen these kind of things you say on the internet. And we both think you're going to get yourself put in prison. We don't think you're joking. And I want to talk to you. Let's talk. Can you get counseling? Of course, I'm partly wanting to give her advice herself so she stays out of jail. And, she's young enough to get herself into a fist fight and get herself put in prison. She's also young enough to change. It's even more important that somebody like me takes the time and concern and takes her seriously. Takes her as seriously as you would take a 21-year-old man. But also, I take her as seriously as I would a 35-year-old man. She's an adult. She's an adult. She's making her own decisions. She's making decisions that are going to have consequences that change the rest of her life. And remember, when I talked to her, she did admit to me some of the problems she was having with rage, with violence in her own life. And she told me one example where over a pretty trivial confrontation, when she was driving her car, she stopped the car, got out of the car, and ran down the sidewalk, chased down a complete stranger and punched him in the back of the head. So, I read that correctly. I mean, it was just based on snarky comments she made on the internet. But I took those warning signs seriously with her. Not for the sake of belittling her. And criticism is not an end in itself, right? And I did the right thing in taking that seriously and reaching out to her. And that's what all of you guys should do too, regardless of age, regardless of gender. You shouldn't trivialize, dehumanize, treat someone like an infant because they are a young woman. And in most of these cases, you're really just talking about how the woman presents herself, not even her real age. Wenji is 30, but she has blue hair, and she presents herself in a somewhat childlike way on camera in terms of her on-camera persona. Nina and Randa are 23 as of the last time I checked. It's possible they've had a birthday and they're now 24. 23 years old. They present themselves like idiots. So a lot of people defend them as if they're, 18. Now, I do think, in a substantive sense, we should still criticize them. We should take what they're doing seriously and criticize it if they were 18. Would the criticism be different if they were 18 as opposed to 23? In a subtle way, yes. But not to the extent of dehumanizing them, not to the extent of treating them like infants, not failing to take it seriously, not dismissing it because they are young women. If anything, why not take it more seriously because they have their whole lives ahead of them? When I'm criticizing Gary Francione, again, criticism is not an end in itself. There are a lot of reasons to criticize the work, the intellectual legacy, the political influence of Gary Francione's book. But when you're reading the book of an old man, an elderly man going to his retirement, probably doesn't have so many books left in him, there's a lot of bitterness in that book. There are years and years of experience, years of expertise, but I don't think I'm going to change his mind. You can feel in that book this seething rage he has towards PETA, people with ethical treatment of animals. The rage and disappointment he has from so many years of dealing with humane society in the United States. And also just something less serious, but you can see he just has no interest in scientific research into animal intelligence. It's just interesting, just a peculiarity. I don't think I could influence him on any of those things, you know what I mean? Because he's writing. When you read that book, it sounds like a book written by a bitter old man. And it is. It's still worth reading. And my review and discussion of the book is worth watching. Don't get me wrong. But do I dehumanize him or dismiss him on that account? No. Do I dehumanize or dismiss Nina and Randa or Wenju and these because they are so-called young women? No. Take it seriously. Respect them enough to disrespect them in the same way you would disrespect an adult man.
If you take a look at their latest videos, it's what you'd expect young girls to be making videos about, like boys and dating and the like.
It's what you'd expect young girls to have videos about? Really? And what he shows on camera is a selection of the absolute garbage content that Nina and Randa have. Really? Really, Ryan? So you don't expect better from a 23-year-old adult, a 23-year-old man, a 23-year-old woman, because they're young girls at age 23. Really?
Music and singing, and if you take a look at their latest videos, it's what you'd expect young girls to be making videos about.
Young girls. Really, Ryan? Is that what you'd expect of your own daughter at age 23? Put into Google or search within YouTube Nina Randa Challenge, the Lick My Body Challenge, the Try Not to Laugh Challenge, the Chubby Bunny Challenge. It's garbage content. It's not what I expect from young girls. It's not what I expect from 23-year-old women. It's not, Ryan. And Ryan, to me, this is one of those interesting situations where your perception of sexism in me is 180 degrees wrong. Throughout this whole video, Ryan, you repeatedly make contemptuous and dismissive remarks of exactly this kind on the basis of what can you expect from young girls? Why would anyone expect better from 23-year-old women than the Lick My Body Challenge? Why would you have higher standards of expectations? Simply because they are young girls, and he sometimes says young people. This is in reference to Nina and Randa, age 23. This is in reference to Vegan Cheetah, age 28, because they're young people. And then he repeatedly demands of me, who am I to judge? Because he says I'm approximately 40 years old. Ryan, I've got to ask you the same question I asked Vegan Cheetah when he confronted me about this over Skype, face-to-face, live. Who am I to judge? Ryan, I don't think you've taken the time to watch a video like the Lick My Body Challenge from Nina and Randa. I think you'll have trouble sitting through it because it's garbage content. But if you sit down and watch that video from Nina and Randa, at the end of that video, I would ask you, what qualifications do you think I need to have to judge that video, to judge that content? Ryan very intentionally misrepresented what I said and why I said it. He edited what I said. It is much worse than taking my words out of context. If you watch the first 7 minutes of that video, it's 20 minutes long. If you even just look at the thumbnail image of the video, you would have a very clear sense of the criticism I offered to Nina and Randa and why I was criticizing them. Okay? It is simply not true to say that I was bullying them. However, it is true to say that I criticize them in exactly the same way I criticize men. I criticize men on this channel far more harshly. Many, many times I've criticized men far more harshly than I have ever criticized Nina and Randa. And sometimes people's physical appearance is salient, and sometimes it's not. In Nina and Randa's case, if you're talking about people who are an aspiring actress, an aspiring model, an aspiring musician in Los Angeles, going to an audition, in that context, the way you look is relevant. Okay? In many other contexts, it's not relevant or it's of very little significance. Of course, when I'm addressing my critique to Ted Carr, I do think his physical appearance is relevant because it's part of what he's selling. It's part of what he's marketing. But 90% of my criticism of Ted Carr has to do with his philosophy, which I find much more disturbing and much more important to criticize. Nevertheless, I did not choose to sexualize Nina and Randa in this critique. I'm critical of the fact that their content, in a tawdry way that I described as worse than porn, I very specifically said I have more respect for actors and actresses in the porn industry than I have for Nina and Randa and what they do in these videos. Nina and Randa sexualize themselves in a manner I find impossible to respect, like the Lick My Body and Challenge and all these other garbage videos they upload. And Nina and Randa trivialize themselves and infantilize themselves. They present themselves as idiots and as young idiots to such an extent that they've even fooled you, Ryan. They've even tricked you into defending them as if they're children, as if they're people who shouldn't answer to any higher standard, as if they shouldn't have any better ambitions to do anything better in the world than the crap they're doing. They've so totally mastered the art of infantilizing themselves. The same way before, not everyone, many people were defending Wenji as if she was a child and were then shocked when I pointed out that she was 30 years old. In the same way, Ryan, you have gone down this path of treating women like infants. And I think you need to stop, wake up, and really challenge yourself. Would you be making these excuses for a 23-year-old man?